I mean, incredibly hard on a project that is going to help the TI community immensely. And the basis of this, and you can correct me at any time, Mo, if I'm wrong, but the basis of this project is to essentially organize the TI community because it's basically been in chaos. Trying to obtain information from different various articles that are all over the place and basically not even receiving much information and being highly confused trying to get information to the TI community. So what Mo has done is has organized what he has called the TI community
model for success.
Changed, but the TI community toolbox, and also a new organization that has come out that has been posted up on Twitter, which is in coordination with an I believe it's an NBC program, and I'll let Mo go into more of that. But the TI community toolbox is a place where TIs can go to get the information that they need, that is organized, so that all TIs are not just trying to flounder around out there getting information and that they don't really know about. It's a place where people can be informed. He has also formed a committee. He is forming a committee of individuals that can work on these projects as well in order to help TIs across the United States and abroad become more informed. So with all that, Mo, please let us know exactly what you're doing, and I'm so glad that you're here today.
Well, I'm glad to be here, and thank you guys for setting this up and putting all this stuff together. I know it takes a good bit of work, and so it's important, and I appreciate you allowing me to participate in it. Starting from the most important long-term objective we have as a community of TIs is implementing this kind of community-wide model for success. It's based on something called the community toolbox. So the idea behind it is that right now, the TI community is largely organized with separate groups, organizations, and individual TIs working separately on select activities. This creates an underutilization of TI resources, it creates competition and turf constraints, and it limits our success. So implementing a standard mainstream community framework used by other successful communities will maximize our resource utilization, promote cooperation, and significantly increase our success as a single TI community that is made up of individual TIs and TI groups and organizations. And something that illustrates this model is what we just started doing with this opportunity that came up with NBC. And we implemented the hashtag #TargetedTo. And what we did there is we reached out to the entire community, regardless of what group or organization they also belong to, and we created a standard message that we were then able to kind of crowdsource and have a whole number of TIs from all different aspects of the TI community all do what? all focus on the very same thing in a very unified fashion. And what that shows, it shows that, first of all, there's many of us, not just the American officials, but more importantly, it helps us to present ourselves to the non-TI world as an organized community of people. And that's one of the things that the TI community is lacking, is that right now, if you were to, go into, Facebook or Twitter, whatever it is, and you start looking into it and without really knowing anything, being some third-party independent observer, it's going to look disheveled, disorganized, and, just a lot of redundant stuff like Kristen mentioned, because right now, mostly a lot of people are putting up videos and articles, and that's all very important. The question becomes so we posted something a year ago. How was it used for the past year? And so we're trying to, as another initiative, John Richardson and Maddie Finch is helping with this, we're trying to curate information. So we're trying to organize it to create a place where if you need a particular type of article, let's say for a government petition drive, you have a library to pull that from. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Or if you're looking on how to create a personal story, you go there and here's information about how you can create a personal story. And that's just one example. Both of those are community-wide initiatives. So it doesn't matter what you're working on individually, what group you belong to, what organization. All of these things are meant to augment. The community model for success is meant to augment, not supplant, current initiatives, groups, and organizations. So it should never be in competition. That's not the goal, and if that happens, then we need to correct something. It should be in cooperation with the existing TI's efforts, existing group efforts, and existing organizational efforts. So going back to the TI community model for success, let me just say that this isn't something that just appeared in my head or anybody else's head. This is a standard model that other communities use to be more successful. And it's a whole website written, I can't remember the name of the university, it's an EDU site, and it walks through all the things that a community needs in order to be more successful. And so all we're really doing is we're just taking these different parts and we're modifying them as needed for our community as TIs, and then we're implementing it. And a good way to start changing the mental model that we have as TIs is to look at a different type of organizational model. So, for example, there's a process that's followed, and there's people from different groups and organizations that can be part of these different committees, if you will, that all exist in different parts of the process. So starting from the beginning, something called a coordinating committee. So the coordinating committee is made up of TIs who want to be part of it. One, that could come from, chairmen or board members from other existing TI organizations, TIs that do a lot of work on their own and want to be part of something bigger, and TIs that focus on different types of things. So for example, with this, as you guys look to reach out and create the interviews, maybe you would have a different way to push the hashtag targeted to. So for example, because we're working together as a community, that hashtag targeted to campaign now gets more visibility. So it's a more cooperative model, and there's a process that goes along with it, and an organizational framework. So a coordinating committee, they're kind of people who probably have a more experience than just your new TI. They're probably either having their own type of initiatives they specifically work on, or they're parts of existing groups or organizations. And the goal there is for us to come up with things like our vision statement, our mission statement, and our key objectives as a community. And so to go on that, and just talk about where we're at with that. Right now, our vision statement is a world full of human empathy and free of psychotronic, DEW, and organized stalking human rights abuses. Mission statement is to end the 21st century human rights abuses caused by psychotronics, DEWs, and organized stalking. Help victims to cope, and if we cannot bring about a change in their hearts, bring the perpetrators of these human rights abuses to justice. Who are we? We are a coalition of individuals and groups working together in support of our mission. So that's something that the community itself has been lacking. What is our common vision as a community? What is our common mission as a community? Who are we? And what are the key objectives from a high level that we want to focus on as a community? And right now, the objectives we have, first of all, is community development. That's kind of getting together and helping each other. And, these are kind of, these are high level things. So there's an umbrella. And so individual efforts can probably hit on several of the objectives just for that one initiative. For example, the hashtag targeted to helped us to develop as a community by bringing us together, but it also was public engagement. By putting out that common message, we are engaging the public, which is something we need. The next one is support. So this is just helping each other. Like, for example, what you're doing here, you guys put together a technology platform, right, in order to allow TIs to, tell the community who they are, what their thoughts, whatever it is. People can come up with different technology, like Trilla. How do we use that for projects? So basically, it's just helping each other. Somebody needs help grammar editing or writing, so a TI that's good at that can help. That's just your support. Of course, we have coping and shielding. This is a lot of coping goes on in the community already. People share their experiences and what they're going to, and we have a lot of shielding stuff that people are talking about. I think a good example of that is Robert Stanson, and so that's something that's important to all TIs. I mean, if we could shield ourselves from it, then we'd be great. So we can't do that, so we kind of have to cope. Next, we have research and prove. And so this is any of the things that we get either through experimentation or research that show that this is real. This is a real thing. For example, there are actual articles that you can get from Freedom of Information Act about psychotronics. And the interesting thing about that is it's freely accessible on government websites. And all of it goes quiet around 1999, 2000, which, just for a little bit of a theory out there, that's when Putin took power. But in any case, it's research and prove. Public engagement. So we know this is public engagement. The Target 2 campaign is public engagement. And one of the things that's important as a community is the TI's community does a very good job or much better job at being TI focused. And what we need to do is to take that and then to just transition it a little bit so that it's non-TI focused, so that we can somehow get to recruit the journalists, the scientists, the medical doctor, whatever we need, legal professionals that are non-TIs, that can understand that this technological totalitarianism is something that can hit them at any point in time, hit their children. I mean, if they hit American government officials, right, then, the sky's the limit. And to get these people to say, this is something that we need to understand. This is very 21st century stuff. This is what the 21st century is. And just because I'm not a TI doesn't mean that I want to make sure that we prevent this kind of dystopian future where those with technological power do whatever they want to the technologically powerless, and get people to help our community. Policy change, we all want that, right? I mean, anytime that we can do anything to change structure in the law, or international communities like human rights organizations like human rights, the United Nations has a whole area, put together for torture and things like that. And then there's other organizations too. There's actually one that's with the Americas too. So at some point as a community, we need to be able to create the formal documentation, and it's going to be a lot of work that we need to get on the radar with these international anti-torture groups. And so that's just some examples.
I've got to interrupt you here. Now, this is something we've been trying to do for years. I know as much as I'm known, when I do the call to arms, or Anthony on Facebook does the call to arms, hey, here's our material, all the scientific information that you could possibly want. Go to your universities, go to your town halls, you've given me everything you need. Go do it. And then, you get people just like, well, if you're looking for scientists, maybe you should contact this person to be on the show to talk. No. We've done all the research. We've done the groundwork here. It's up for you, the TI community, to go out and to reach these people. So, like I said, it's real. It sounds easier on paper. So, how do we get TIs to go and implement whatever it is that needs to be done? Because for me, I feel as though TIs have a bit of a savior complex. They need a savior. They need someone to come and save them. I don't see anybody wanting to go out and do the footwork.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that we're going to have to address. So one of the things that the TI Community Model for Success is going to enable us to do is to take the different TIs, and it's going to be mostly the TIs that, like you guys, that do a lot of work, that are kind of seen as a little bit of the leaders in the community. And if we work together, let's say we have a 10-member board, and each of those board members pushes their stuff out to their organizations, their groups, and their TI contacts. If it's coming from this leadership that's showing solidarity, then we're going to have a lot more success than if it's just me or just you. So we would, for example, the Targeted 2 campaign, that would be something where, yeah, you guys are doing these videos, but you also are now going to go out and say, you need to do this Targeted 2 campaign. You need to do it. This is something that's important, and people will listen to you, even though it's not related to the video specifically. It's something that as a coordinating committee, which is something I hope both of you become part of, this is a high level objective right now as a community we need to reach. And so run with that Targeted 2 campaign. From my perspective, so I don't run the videos like you do the interviews, but I can help get people to go do them and reach out to them. And I do that. So that's that community paradigm shift that we're going to start undertaking, is that we think about things as a community, and we have this coordinating committee that understands our vision, our mission, who we are, what we do from high level objectives, and can communicate that with the message of solidarity to the rest of the community, so that it moves to the next step in the TI Community Model for Success process, and that is your objective and action committees. And the objective and action committees, their job is to take the individual objectives and then to create strategies to achieve them, and then to create a specific action plan, which is made up of specific steps and the people who are completing the steps to go out and accomplish something specifically that in the end ties right back into our vision, our mission, and our high level objectives. So that's the next piece of the process, is this objective and action committee group. And that can be made up of people on the coordinating committee as well. It can be made up of individual TIs that have a specific interest. Like, for example, there's some guys that really are just focused on shielding, like Robert. He would be much more inclined to be part of an activity that's focused on shielding, and so that's something he would do. He may not want to be part of the evaluating committee, for example, which is what happens afterwards. We evaluate what we did as a community and look for how we can be more successful in the future. So let me just go back.
Well, real quick, I've had a thought throughout this. I've discussed many things with you involving this project, but and I'm hoping that I word this right, because I think it's so important. I think that one of the things that is needed in this community toolbox more than anything is a way in which to break through, to reach TIs on a level, to break through a lot of the fallacies that are out there in their minds about targeting. And I don't know if that makes sense to you, but
it does.
I think that if there was a way to implement a resource to kind of end some of the confusion that TIs suffer through, and I'm going to try to word this the best way that I know how. Dee and I, in particular, we see a lot of the major symptoms, so to speak, of what being TI can really do to somebody. And I think that, I guess what I'm saying is, if we had more resources as well, initially for TIs, so that they didn't get that far in having to deal with those issues when it's too late, and I think that makes sense to everybody, then that you've I think that you really have accomplished something, because sometimes I think that it has a tendency just to get the best of somebody, and then you're kind of floundering out there trying to help somebody that has really suffered immensely. And I think that by implementing something along those lines to really try to help end the confusion for a lot of TIs is a really big part of the TI community toolbox to get that in there, because there's so many fallacies about what's really actually happening to a TI. That's my feeling now. I don't know if V would agree with that, but I think that if you kind of end some of that for TIs, there'd be a lot more willingness to participate from TIs, because I don't think that they would feel that they were having such a hard time coping, and then be more willing to participate, because I think then what you would do is you would kind of eliminate some of the fear that's associated with participation. And I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what I'm feeling.
Well, I'm very glad you brought that up. Very, very valid point. And I want to illustrate one thing here to knock that home with people, to get that home with people. For example, a lot of TIs think that they're being targeted by their neighbors. And, you know, the system is designed, the targeting system is designed so that it's global, it reaches everyone, doesn't have any loose ends to trip the system up on, or to be able to give evidence to anyone. It's, you know, satellite, cell towers, you know, carrier waves from this tech to that tech. It's not your neighbors, people. I mean, you could be a special a-hole that the government doesn't like, and they'll plant someone next door. It's entirely rare. So the TI community needs to get out of that fear of the neighbor. And they're always pinned down at home or never at home. You can't do anything. Get over that fear, because it's not your neighbor. I've read many articles where a person went next door, killed their neighbor, and was found and questioned. They were questioned by police, and they told police they were looking for a mind control device or a mind control box, which, you know, the agenda here is depopulation and population control. That's two birds, one stone, off one side up here. People think it's the neighbor. It's not. So, yes, excellent point.
And I think another thing that I'm trying to relay to Robbie too is let's get TIs to a point where they might know what time it is. It is a bottom line. You know, get TIs to know what time it is. And then I think when they start to realize what time it is a little bit more, then they're going to be a lot better equipped to deal with what comes at them. And again, Robbie, I think that what you're doing is absolutely commendable. I really do. To take on.
Well, same thing. I think with you guys. I mean, what you're doing is absolutely commendable as well.
Can you tell me a little? Can you tell me a little bit more about how you're going about, you know, recruiting people? How you're going about trying to obtain individuals, and you know what possibly can be done. I have to apologize because I've been sick, but I've been trying to share your information as much as I can, and I apologize at my lacking of that. But that
you're sick, get healthy.
Needs to be shared big time in order to get organized. So I know that's a big part of it, but what else can be done?
Yeah, so recruiting, that's something. So, you know, we have to go back and think about that under the umbrella of our community objectives, and we have something there. I think it's coping and shielding for new TIs, as well as community development. And in order to recruit these new TIs, we're going to have to do two things. One, we have to find them or let them find us. I think more importantly, they need to be able to find us. And two, we need some type of onboarding program, which is what I think you mentioned earlier, both you guys, so that they get information that the coordinating committee has stamped as these things we all agree on, okay? And focus on these things first. None of us believe that Satan incarnate is actually running around with horns doing this to people, but yet you get online, people say that kind of stuff, right? And okay, yeah, what they're doing is evil, but Satan's not actually running around with horns on his head doing this to people. Whoever said that, they need to get their head checked a little bit, because that's the type of stuff that TIs get when they come on board, and it's the kind of stuff that pushes them away, makes them scared, makes them think that it's not worth the effort. And so if we work together to create a method in which they can find us, we can find them. I think some of that is with search engine optimization, using targeted ads and things of that nature, reaching out to other outlets, like, for example, YouTube, Twitter, things like that, and not always being so Facebook focused. And then some of the guys have good information too, like one I think Timothy's talking about, having public service announcements. Right? Billboards. I think Robert Stanson's doing a sticker campaign. And, we use these different outlets in order to reach out to people. But once we reach out to them, we need to send them to the place we want them to be at, to have the information that they need to have the best chance at being able to survive this without destroying their own life. And right now, that kind of onboarding material doesn't exist. And, I can tell you personally, when it started happening to me, I had no idea. I mean, I didn't know anything. It's just, and you're right. You think your neighbor's doing it, and then, a couple years later, you figure out, no, this is just how the psychotronic V2K works. They can make you hear stuff anywhere in your own head and your neighbors. I mean, you make it think like it's coming from the next room, but it's not, and I think a lot of TIs, they get caught up in that game, and they end up doing things that can be detrimental to their life, not just their health, but their life in general, all aspects of their life. So by being able to find them, or them finding us, and being able to push them to an onboarding place where the things that we all agree on as a coordinating community and stamp it out, that'll give them a much better opportunity as TIs to survive this unscathed as much as possible. And also to recruit them, because if we're showing ourselves as a community with solidarity and we're organized, that's going to attract exactly the types of TIs that we want to attract to help us in this. So both your points are valid, and that's definitely something that's on the agenda. See, the key is this. As we become more organized, we're going to need someone to probably be head of recruiting, right, to take that lead. We're probably going to have to learn some new skills like search engine optimization, Facebook ads, things of that nature, so we can reach out to the audience that we're trying to reach out to. Someone has to create the onboarding material. You're going to need a document or a multimedia type of presentation that walks the TI through. So you think you're being targeted? Well, here, read this, and then, come get more information
that
from
is
us.
an excellent idea, because that's the first question that people run into. I had to actually put my situation into a browser to try to figure out what it was called. I didn't know. So that is an excellent idea. I mean, I had to try to find words to describe what was to me and stuck it in a browser, and just happened to get lucky. It pulled up gang stalking. I was like, what the hell is gang stalking? I mean, I sat there with my mouth open as I read the description. I was like, what the, so that is an excellent idea, because I had I'm from Mayberry, for crying out loud. I didn't know. So
Well, neither did I.
good plan on that one, for sure. Now I know I've been seeing links go around, and I've been seeing people share them as well. Real briefly, what's going on with the NBC thing and the links? What exactly happened with that? What are they doing? I mean, I read today, but how did that whole thing come about?
Well, just being on Facebook, I saw there was this NBC article. This was about a month ago. And then I saw there was a follow-up, and that it actually seems like it's gotten more traction within NBC. It's spread from Josh Lederman, I think is how you pronounce his name, to different other journalists and media professionals at NBC. And what I kind of thought about is that, we need to show ourselves as a community that it's not just happening to these American officials, okay? And we need to present that in a way that says, there's a group of us together, we're organized in solidarity, and we're saying the same message, and then we're here and we're out there. And that way, it turned into this kind of targeted to campaign, hashtag targeted to. American officials are targeted, well, so are we. And then I just thought, and I said, well, it'd be better just to have one simple common message that just says simply, this is happening to me, I live in this city and state, please help us. Just something very simple and basic. And what that does is we click links. These links are all to the tweets from NBC that are specific to the journalism that they're putting out about the targeted American officials. And we just go out there and have TIs put out this simple message saying, targeted to, please help us, I'm in this city and state, so that they can see that, this is something that is happening at a much larger level than this initial story with just the American officials show. And the people that are telling us this, they're not posting stuff that are going to turn away a non-TI. I mean, for example, non-TIs are not going to look at the Illuminati or the Masons and say that this is something I want to reach out to and help. They're not. They're just not. They're going to get turned away from that. But if we just focus on things that we think that gain traction with them, not the whole world we can get caught up in as TIs, and just think outward focus, like what would a non-TI need to hear in order to start thinking about this. And that Target 2 campaign was just one example of how we can work as a community to take advantage of some journalism that was occurring that talks about this 21st century technological totalitarianism, where the technologically powerful are able to do whatever they want to the technologically powerless, and there's no ramifications. It's a dystopian type model. And that's what the Target 2 campaign is about. Now, what do we expect to yield from that? Well, I mean, it would be great if Josh Lederman would contact me directly and we could set up something like this, right? That's probably not going to happen yet. But a year from now, if this thing continues to have traction, there's more of an investigation, and we continue to present ourselves to the non-TI community as organized, as together, as semi-experts, as something that warrants additional attention, then all we need really is just one break, right? I mean, we just need one break to really open this up. So it's a lot. And so what happens when we get that one break? Well, right now, we're not ready. If Josh Lederman were to contact any of us tomorrow and say, I want you to do an NBC special with me next Wednesday, we'd be stuck in the mud, right? I mean, we don't have it, but we should have it, because at some point, we're going to get the opportunity with mainstream and non-mainstream media. We're going to have that opportunity, and we don't have that packet, So that all comes back to the recruiting community development thing, where we need to find more TIs that are willing to be part of what we're doing, that are willing to engage in the work that needs to be done. Because there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And it's a lot to get your head around. It requires a lot of thinking. And I know I'm not probably doing the best method of explaining this to somebody who's never heard it before. But in summary, the idea is this. We're a community, and we have to start acting like a community, and this is how we're going to do that. And the model is standard. It's mainstream. Other communities use it, and that's going to yield to much more success. And a simple message. And come on board. Here's the document that talks about what it is. We'd like your signature of the document, and join whatever you want to join. And then when the time is right, like the Target 2 campaign, take action, and to do the actual tweet replies that were necessary for that very simple campaign. So, like you guys, we all struggle with the fact that there's so many ideas and everything out there, but yet we're all probably not as happy with the actual ideas being implemented. And so hopefully this model will help different TIs in different areas reach out to work together so that we have more efficient resource utilization and therefore more successful.
Well,
Excellent.
I have one last question. I know we're running out of time. Not a question, but more of a comment. I actually do like the idea of making it relatable, and people can go to my documentaries, please. But the way I did my documentary series is I made everything relatable to anyone that could possibly watch it. I mean, from, you know, well beachings and you know, people going on mass shootings and things like that. All the stuff is related to the psychotronic situations, and people have been in one of these situations or another. I mean, I've seen plenty of volunteers trying to help the dolphins get back to the water, and you know, there's a lot of people talking about violence in the schools. I mean, this targeting touches all areas of our social construct here as a society. It's just getting people to wake up to each and every one of them, because we're all targeted, whether anybody wants to believe it or not. We're all targeted one way or another in society.
Well, right, we have to ask ourselves, you know, what is 21st century society going to be? Is it going to be a society of empathy and enlightenment, or are we going to fall into technological totalitarianism, where those that are technologically powerful are able to do whatever they want to those that are technologically powerless? Because that, in the end, you know, that's the end game of this kind of, you know, targeting model that's going on. It really creates a dystopian society based on technological totalitarianism, where the technologically powerful do whatever they want to the technologically powerless without any repercussion or consequence. And you know, that's something that everyone can relate to. You don't even have to go into any really the details. The concept of technology being misused in order to create this type dystopian totalitarianism future, you know, that's something nobody wants. And now that more of this technology is becoming more open and mainstream, scientific reports, medical reports, of course, the NBC Journal, all of that, people are more receptive to that message. So we really don't even have to go into like targeting or directed energy weapons or psychotronics. We can talk to people on a little bit of a higher, I don't know, higher levels, a little more generic, a little more of a generic level, and just talk about technology, just technology, and people using technology to do what? To create this awful dystopian society that they don't want any part of. And that kind of piques their interest because nobody wants that. And then we can add in the psychotronics and the DWs and all that type of stuff. But if you start with certain things initially, you know, in my experiences, you know, it's hearing it for the first time, it needs to be like a marketing message, you know, very generic, high level type stuff. And then, you know, once you get them into it, right, if you get them hooked a little bit, then you can start bringing them into, you know, the world of what all this is. Because otherwise, it can be a little bit overwhelming. And
definitely, for definitely, I mean, you feel like you're literally on another planet, you know, looking down, going, "What happened to the world I used to live in?" You really do. But I want to thank you so much, Mo, for coming on. And again for your patience. What you've done is absolutely amazing, and I really want to commend you again for all your hard work and your dedication to the TI community, because you don't find too many people that put out this much time and effort to try to help, and I want to thank you personally for doing so much work. Thank you, and thank you.
You're welcome. And I appreciate the work you guys put into this.
Thank you.
And I hope at some point, you know, to do a follow-up with you at some point to try to see where things are going.
Yeah, and that's going to be dependent upon, you know, the TIs. They're either going to buy into this and they're going to be part of it. And we're going to work together on different things, even if it's not directly related to my specific area. Or we're not. And I think in time, with enough patience and effort, you know, we'll get the message out there and we'll show some success, like this Targeted 2 campaign. That's a success. Okay. Your documentaries and videos, I mean, that's the whole community that you're doing that with. That's a success. And we put out our success stories related back to our community model and just keep bringing people in that want to be part of the team, part of the community.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Mo. We're gonna close now, but thank you again, and always thank you for all your support as well.
Appreciate it, y'all. Thank you.
This has been another edition of Targeted, and I want to thank everybody for joining us, and thank you, V, my co-host, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you. Bye.